Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's always questioning my Instagram posts. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. So we're starting there?
I guess we have to.
I mean,
yeah.
I don't always appreciate when you post a thing that seems critical of our in-show performance during the show, but then it posts after the show is over.
Should we tell people what's happening?
But also your criticism is just you smiling casually?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, let's tell people what's happening.
So there was the Paul Pogba, Jose Mourinho video from training that I believe was on Sky Sports because they're allowed to film a bit of training. It got widely shared because it very much showed Mourinho making some not friendly comments to Pogba, Pogba giving him the side eye, and then a bit of a debate. No one was quite clear what was going on, except obviously there's some sort of weird disagreement between these two figures. There's probably the two biggest figures at Manchester United, right?
I would say obviously nobody in like the mainstream media was particularly interested. Enterprising individuals, at least as far as I know, over at the Reddit Red Devils page, did a lot of audio, not manipulation, but they did a lot of enhancing and clearing up and removing background noise.
They got some skills.
They did.
Got some skills, some audio, video, and a little bit of lip reading skills. And they figured out that it was essentially Mourinho complaining to Pogba about Pogba's, Instagram post.
Yes. And
the Instagram post, which we have seen, I think it's been deleted, right? But we found it anyway, thanks to the Mirror newspaper, was basically just Pogba, Pereira and Luke Shaw up in the stands at Old Trafford watching the game against Derby because they weren't selected for the League Cup game. And it's just a quick video of like, hey, here we are watching the game. And Shaw kind of laughs and smiles, and Pogba laughs, and then that's it, right?
Right.
There's really nothing to it.
There's nothing to it. The issue, as far as I understand it, is that Pogba he meant to post it during the first half, and I think that's when he uploaded it.
When they hadn't lost on penalties to Frank Lampard.
I think they were up 1-0 at the time when he filmed it, and then it didn't either, maybe because buttons are hard, or maybe because the Wi-Fi was bad. I've heard the Wi-Fi is bad, so who knows? It didn't post until after the game, so it looked like the three of them it was posted, either it looked like the three of them after that loss had happened, or sort of was posted as, oh, look, we're all laughing and we just lost.
Maybe Pogba is overly elaborate when he tries to push the buttons.
That could be. That could definitely be.
He was trying to show off instead of just pressing post, nice and simple.
Yeah, that could be, but more than likely it's just that he's a young man and he likes Instagram.
I mean, every soccer player, right?
Yeah.
Here's the bigger thing to me is that I think this is not a big deal in and of itself. The reason it's a big story, the reason we're opening the show with it is it's the latest little morsel in what's becoming a long-running drama of Pogba and Mourinho, right? There was, say, after the Wolves draw, remind it was a draw, not last, there was Pogba saying, we need to attack more. There's Mourinho criticising Pogba for losing the ball for Wolves' equaliser. There was the Total Soccer Show saying it wasn't all Pogba's fault. Not sure how much we played into
probably not much
drama. And then the big thing, as far as I'm concerned,
I can't imagine Jose Mourinho has ever listened to a podcast, at least a soccer podcast.
Maybe some Portuguese ones. The big thing for me is Mourinho stripping Paul Pogba of the vice captaincy, the second captaincy at Manchester United. That to me is a big deal.
It is, and I think it's worth noting here that you and I aren't always like so concerned with who the captain is because, as we've talked about many times,
because I'm the captain.
You really sure, Somali pirate, but you usually only have actually a couple very specific roles, but more so it's about what it represents, what it symbolizes.
It represents seniority within the club.
Exactly. And leadership and the fact that you're a person who people look to.
You embody the club in a way.
I mean, and it's worth noting, that's what he was for France. You see all the videos of him leading chants and leading celebrations and getting people involved. And I think he was that sort of positive energy that France needed. And I think that's what he tries to be for Manchester United, at least to some extent. And I think that's the other thing that's very makes the video more than just Mourinho and Pogba having an uncomfortable conversation. The thing that makes it worse is that he comes out, he's all energetic, Pogba, high-fiving everybody, and then you just see that energy dissipate immediately. And it's very cold and not particularly friendly between the two.
Agree. Okay, I want to go big picture, dramatic, symbolic with this as well. I would argue that Pogba represents the Manchester United that fans want Manchester United to be. It's a bit of flair, bit of drama, bit of willingness to take risks, whereas a bit more fun. Whereas Jose Mourinho represents a more sort of dour, pragmatic approach that might grind out some results. And this Instagram thing is almost just a place where they've clashed over pretty much that, right? But that same principle, the same opposing principles apply to what happens on the field. Yeah,
I think that definitely makes sense.
It's a battle for the soul of Manchester United. If I was trying to make this more dramatic.
I mean, you could do that. I would say, like, I wouldn't take it that route. And I wouldn't take it that route because, like, that's hyperbolic. It's because I don't know if either one of them represents the soul of Manchester United.
Okay.
And I think that's maybe part of the problem is that in the past, under Sir Alex Ferguson, there was that no one player is bigger than the club. If they don't want to be here, we will sell them. And that's been that mentality. Allegedly, supposedly, Mourinho said the same thing to the squad when he stripped Pogba of the vice-captaincy. But that doesn't carry as much weight as it did when Sir Alex Ferguson said it, because if you look at Jose Mourinho, I think there are plenty of people wondering, like, but do you? Like, are you bigger than the club? Like, do you need to be saying that stuff?
That's interesting. Yeah, Ferguson could say that because the implicit thing was, but I am the club.
Yeah.
I've been here decades. I am the club, and I've got this record of success. I'm never going to be fired. I can say, I can get rid of Roy Keane. I can get rid of David Beckham.
Yep.
I can mistakenly get rid of Jaap Stam and it not even seem too bad.
Yeah.
So because Mourinho's future isn't guaranteed and Pogba's future isn't guaranteed, that's why I think this is interesting, because it's almost like, which way are Manchester United going to go? Are they going to, if Mourinho wants to sell Pogba, do they try and make that happen in January? If it's Pogba versus Mourinho, do they hold on to Pogba because he's the long-term investment?
Yes.
So I'm not asking what you want to happen.
Did you catch my subtle answers to those questions? I don't know if it was obvious.
I did. So it's obvious that's what you would prefer to happen.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because this does feel like...
Because only one of them says we need to attack.
Exactly.
Right?
And I would say, like, you and I guess I feel like it's worth clarifying here that you and I don't usually buy into this, like, ooh, they had a weird look at each other. That means they must be on the outs. Like, we don't get too involved in that. I will say that this is one of the biggest ones for me of maybe things aren't very good. Really aren't very good between those two. And I've kind of believed that it was more so Jose Mourinho uses that type of distraction to his advantage so he can move away from bad results. There have been those statements that, like, maybe that's what he's doing here. He knew the Sky cameras were here. I don't think it's the case. I think this is Jose Mourinho feeling like he doesn't...
This is not good attention to deflect from what happened, right? This just piles the pressure on.
But I think this is Jose Mourinho feeling like he needs to establish, like, alpha dominance and recognizing Paul Pogba is the other very likely alpha in the room. And so I think this is him being like, hey, don't post that. Hey, you can't do this. Hey, you can't do that. And it builds this case in his mind of see all these things that he does that distract. And to a lot of people, I would say for me, doesn't seem that distracting. Seems like it's a young guy who wants to win games and has proven at international level that he'll do what it takes to make that happen.
Jose's out of touch. I did see...
You've been saying that for like a year and a half, and I can't believe that I have come around to your way of thinking.
Tactically, I think you could definitely make that case. So he's like one of the few non-pressing managers. Here's a great thing. I wish I could remember who I saw post this tweet. It's very obvious, but I think really telling. The two bad results this past week both came against former Mourinho players.
Yeah.
So Nuno, Wolves manager, was his reserve keeper at Porto.
Right.
Frank Lampard, Derby manager, was obviously his player at Chelsea. But it's almost like that's just a sign that the generation thing we're in the next generation of coaches, that your former players are now the coaches who are getting results against you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say like it's not necessarily like, oh, you're older so you can't relate anymore. And a very obvious example for this is Pep Guardiola's dealing with Benjamin Mendy, where he said earlier in the season, like, he needs to lay off social media. And Benjamin Mendy's response, like, he tweeted out, like, okay, I hear you. Like, all good. Like, and he recognized, like, yeah, probably I do. And
so, can I still say shark?
Exactly. And so just compare those two, where it's like Guardiola saying it publicly, but sort of joking about it. There's a smile on his face as he mentions it at the end, because I think there is like goodwill between the two, but he kind of wants it publicly known. Contrast that with this, and it is sort of like, ooh, not only are you sort of telling a person you didn't like what they did, but you're doing it in a very, like, I am your angry grandpa sort of way.
Angry Grandpa Mourinho, that's where we are.
Kids and their phones.
These kids and their phones, all their smart devices. All right, so welcome to our US men's national team listener question special. It is still that. That's probably going to be in the title. We are still going to be answering, 8 or 9 listener questions about the US men's national team. But this Pogba news kind of broke last night and this morning. We really had to talk about it, right?
We did.
Another thing we have to talk about, United Soccer League's rebrand.
I think you just wanted to kill a little bit of my spirit. Sorry, I stepped on that one. Yes, United Soccer League's rebrand.
Yeah, so USL has rebranded and somewhat reorganized, but not really.
Yep.
How about that? So we knew that USL D3...
It was a major announcement, Daryl.
They did pump it up a bit, right? We knew that USL D3 was coming in 2019. We knew that USL basically owned PDL, the sort of mostly college player and some old pros league, but what they've done is completely rebranded from top to bottom and aligned it in a way that looks like there's pro-rel, but there isn't pro-rel.
Yeah, and there won't be a D3 anymore.
Weirdly not, right?
Of course
so
not.
So what you're going to have now is the US Soccer Sanctioned Division 2, the USL that we all know and love, the one that FC Cincinnati plays in this year, the one that... I'm trying to think of a team that will be there next year, right? Cincinnati are going to be in MLS. Who's definitely there next year?
Louisville City.
Louisville City will definitely be in USL next year. It's going to be called USL Championship.
Right.
USL Championship. The new USL D3 is going to be called USL League One. And the PDL... which has existed for a while now, is going to be called USL League 2. Yeah.
Yep.
Sound familiar?
It does.
Yeah.
I wish they'd just gone the full route and done Premier League, Championship, League One, just to really confuse as many people as possible. That would have been ideal.
So what did you think when you first saw this?
My honest answer?
Yeah, definitely. Always your honest answer.
Meh.
Meh?
Pretty much.
What does that mean?
It means that I understand it means more teams can compete at different levels. It probably gets more teams involved. It still feels...
Wait, what, the rebrand does?
Yeah, because I guess it's like, okay, now you can get maybe smaller teams competing more readily because you don't have as big of a jump between, say, USL and PDL. But really, what it feels like to me, that's me putting a positive spin on it, really what it feels like is it's a corporate rebrand. It's a rebrand. They have new logos and new colors and hooray.
I am still excited about the coming of D3. Because we haven't had a functional D3 almost ever.
You mean USL League 2?
I do mean USL League 1, which is D3.
Okay.
Right? So that is confusing immediately. I wish they hadn't gone with this rebrand before they did it.
So 1 is 3 and 2 is 4.
Yes. Yeah, basically, right? But come on.
Yeah.
Oh. All right.
I'm sorry. I'm making this intentionally confusing.
Yeah, let's not do that because some people, this will be news to some people.
Yeah.
I think maybe the big thing to point out is there is not going to be pro-rel, at least not immediately. In the Q&A that accompanied the rebrand, USL sort of interviewed themselves for the press release.
Just tough questions being asked.
And said, our focus isn't on pro-rel right now, but it does set it up nicely for the future.
Yeah.
And then if there was a wink emoji, they would have included that.
Yeah.
So it's like they're making no promises, and there's a good chance it doesn't happen for a good long while, but it's just being dangled out there like a carrot, right? Like, you should like this because maybe there might be pro-rel one day.
Yeah, play with our hopes. Yeah, I think really what's like tainting this a little bit for me is right before we started recording, I was browsing Reddit, and one of the top posts was a woman holding a cardboard sign that read, I think, journalism is printing things that people don't want you to print. Everything else is just public relations.
Yeah.
That's what this feels like a little bit. Like there wasn't, if that were you asking that question, you would probably cycle back into, okay, but what does that mean? Is there actually a plan for pro-rel? And so it feels like it's a little bit playing with our hopes. And also addressing a question they know they have to address, but not really addressing it.
They should have asked themselves a follow-up question.
Yeah, I think so. It made it look much more argumentative than it probably was. Yeah, and I think that's it. Is that I have no particular animosity towards the USL. It just
we want it to succeed.
We
right?
do absolutely. Yeah. It just feels like this entire rollout was sort of what frustrates us about some of the things that we've dealt with USL. It's very hyped, but then it's a lot of not justified hype. And what I mean by that is, like, it's great. We've got new leagues. You're going to try to get more teams involved, as I said, and you're going to try to make it a little bit easier for teams like the Richmond Kickers to compete by dropping into USL League One.
Yep.
But it just feels like you could just do that. You could just say that. It doesn't need to be this, we have a reach of however many millions of people every week. Or,
here's an example of something that I'm going to assume neither of us like. This is from the release about the rebrand. The USL Championship, so this would be the new USL top tier, is one of the most successful professional soccer leagues in the world, which is already a bit of a stretch to say that, right? You could use the metric of, there's 30-something teams in there, therefore it's successful, but we know that some players are on like $0 contracts, for example, so it's not that successful, right?
$0 contracts, no insurance, a lot of like pay when played.
Yeah, there are a lot of people.
Housing is your payment.
A lot of professional players who are really struggling to make a living in the USL. But then they also say it's reaching a population of more than 84 million across 35 markets in 2019.
Yeah.
Which, again, sounds impressive. But to me, that is just saying... all right, that's like saying, okay, Richmond has a metro population of, 1.2, 1.5 million. So we're going to say that's how many people we're going to reach. I mean, that's not true, right? There's like 5,000 people at the games. There's not 1.2 million people at the games.
You had a very good analogy for this that you brought up and made me laugh before we started recording. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, I do. So let me give you another even better example, though. Toronto 2, Toronto FC 2 will be in the league, right? Yeah. Toronto FC 2 do not get a big crowd because the big Toronto team.
It's like 40 or 50,000, I think.
It is not. But you can't then
take off 3 of those zeros.
You can't add the population of Toronto as your market, right? You can't say millions of people are your market because you have a Toronto FC 2. Yeah, I was going to say it would be like if we said as the Total Soccer Show, we reach a market of everybody who has a smartphone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a potential global audience of 7 billion.
And I think, actually, thank you for, I'm glad you brought that up because I hadn't thought about this until really just when you reset it there, but that's also the frustrating part, is that wouldn't make us look good because then it would be like, okay, well, what's your market acquisition of those people with smartphones?
Yes.
And we'd be like, very minimal. And it's the same thing, is like, if you're going to promote that and then I see 200 people or 1,000 people show up for your games, it really stands in contrast with this statement of we're the most successful league.
Yes.
Or one of the most successful leagues.
So this gets to the heart of it for me, right? Again, want USL to succeed.
Yep.
I like the idea of some sort of US not US soccer, because that sounds like the federation, of American soccer looking organised, but at least having the same branding for 3 different divisions. That's probably a good thing, right? Because it makes things theoretically less confusing. But the thing that concerns me is the attempt to position yourself as something that is already hyper successful, right? Potential market of 84 million. Versus the reality of what is happening. And it really feels to me like USL is doing a sort of fake it till you make it type thing. And 100%. I really just wish they would be a bit more honest about the situation.
Yeah. And I think if you waded into we're trying to stream. I mean, you drew your best attempt at like what the pyramid looks like now.
Yeah,
and it looks a little Stargate-y actually, because it appears that there's a pyramid on top of another pyramid with a pyramid in front of one pyramid.
Yeah, so or
to the side of one pyramid.
You can't really. I'm going to try and visualize this.
You genuinely drew what happens in Stargate. I'm realizing that. I don't know about the TV series, but what happens in the James Spader movie is a pyramid lands on another pyramid.
I did watch that movie this morning just before we.
There we go. I knew it.
But so imagine MLS is its own pyramid. Then below that, I've done the USL pyramid, which is now Championship, League One, League Two. And then just slightly to the right and halfway between the bottom 2 tiers of that pyramid is potentially NPSL Pro with all those teams underneath it in a non-US soccer sanctioned league.
And what's the weird shimmering circle in the middle?
Pro Rel.
That's the Stargate.
Pro Rel is the Stargate.
I mean, it does transport you from one location to another. It takes you from one level to a different level.
But it's kind of scary and you don't want to step into it. Because you're not sure what's going to happen.
Wow. This worked out perfectly.
It could be obliterated.
I have one question for you. Yeah. Did you genuinely watch Stargate today?
I don't think I've ever seen Stargate.
I would be jealous, is what I have to say to that.
I was busy working.
Because Kurt Russell's great in that movie. And it's James Spader kind of before he realized he was James Spader.
Okay,
he doesn't do his. I can't even come close to it.
What's your feeling about the copying of the English language? Because just to give my take on it, that to me,
did you want it in hieroglyphics too?
But yes, please. But that to me is one of those fake it until you make it kind of things, right? You're taking the branding of somewhere more successful and applying it to your league. Like, shouldn't it give yourself an extra shine of success?
I think it's strange, and it probably was to emulate aspects of England, but again, you're still saying you're the second division by saying you're the championship, which I suppose USL Championship will be. But
that's weird, right? That's almost like the EFL Championship, the English Championship, has become so successful as the generic name for a second tier.
Yeah,
that other countries can now just start using that. It's become like the Band-Aid of second tier soccer.
Well, it probably speaks to the league that most USL folks are watching, I guess, is that they think that's the one that will resonate more than just making it 2 and 3.
Yeah.
But I think the other aspect of that I find sort of not frustrating but a little bit confusing is just that I've had to explain before Premier League, Championship, League One, and how that's actually like, no, that's 1, 2, and 3 divisions.
Yeah.
And like, if you're trying to appeal to an American audience, when you hear championship, you usually think championship game. It is the championship. Or it's like, oh, so that's the playoffs.
Every game's a championship game in 2019.
Sure. But it's the idea
that would
of
definitely be my tagline.
But I think it will make people think like, okay, so this is the playoffs then? Or like, it just, I understand what they're trying to do, but it still, I think, leaves probably some people confused.
Yeah. All right. So if I can get the final word on this, I want to argue that ultimately, it's a good thing to get 3 leagues under the same branding. Yeah. And maybe long term, this will be good for the stability of American soccer, especially if the D3 league, League One, successfully attracts more teams. It only has 8 teams officially right now, but we're pretty confident it will have a lot more by 2019. But the branding just could have been a lot savvier. It could have been something that doesn't attract derision and doesn't make me tense up a little bit when I see it.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. So, last word complete. Shall we move on to the actual topic of the day, which is...
We're 20 minutes in.
A bunch more questions?
We're just starting US men's national team listener questions, part 2. Part 1 was yesterday. I really enjoyed it. We got some really good feedback after posting it.
And if you skip the first 2 topics to get to this one, we covered lots of important things. There were revelations. Daryl found his birth mother. It was a big deal.
Wait, is my mother not my birth mother?
Well, you'll have to listen to the first 20 minutes to find out.
All right. Today's first US men's national team question comes from Brandon Thrasher. Brandon asks us, what's your favorite US kit of all time?
Yeah. I've got 3 options here. Do you feel as strongly about US jerseys given, I don't know, that when would you say you first became a big fan of the US national team?
So actually my favorite jersey is from the time I first became a fan. It's when I moved here in 2005.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is it?
It's the 2006 World Cup jersey.
Okay.
If you can picture it, it's the home jersey is white and it has the... What's that? Is that vertical or horizontal? The vertical red and blue stripes that just went down one side and went through the crest.
Okay.
I thought it was simple but kind of classy. So that's my favorite. Even though that World Cup went horribly, right? It's Bruce Arena's second worst World Cup campaign. That jersey I thought was really nice.
All right, I would agree. I like that one. That's fine. Not my favorite, but it's okay. I would say I think a lot of people would go straight to 1994, the denim kit, as it's called. Yeah, and I think that's the thing is I like that one, but I do have to say that if you asked me, it would probably be more ironical than it would be sincere.
Yeah. It's almost like that jersey's so out there and hideous that it's iconic. And I love the idea of celebrating it, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite jersey.
No, and I do look at it more so. I have taken this question seriously, and I've thought, you and I don't tend to wear a lot of jerseys. Like, we have some. I don't think I've ever seen you wear one that wasn't England or US in this office.
Yeah. I normally wear a jersey to literally support a team that I'm watching, right? As opposed to just strolling around.
So I thought about like with that in mind, which jerseys would I genuinely enjoy wearing? And I think the 2 that come to mind are the 2012 home jersey. That would be the Waldo jersey, the Where's Waldo, red and white stripes. I guess it was red and white hoops, actually. And then the other one would be the 2013 Centennial jersey. That was the white, very dark trim and the original crest.
Yes.
Love that one.
That was great, yeah. I really, really like that one too. Yeah.
Keep that word that you just said in mind for later on.
Okay.
That was great.
I'm also weirdly fond in hindsight of the I forgot what it was called. Was it called
the bomb pop?
Yeah, bomb pop. Yeah, the red and blue with just a tiny bit of white.
Yeah.
I thought it was brave. It was bold and different, right?
Yeah.
And I think
this is the 2014 away jersey.
There we go. Yeah. So that jersey and the Where's Waldo jersey that you mentioned, I remember them being ridiculed when the first images leaked online. Everyone was like, "Oh, what is this? It looks terrible." But it's slowly become a favorite of people.
Yeah, I think so. I think especially when compared with some latter day editions, such as the all black with blue and red sleeve jersey for all the black on the American flag. Yeah, it's up there with the U.S. women wearing lime green socks. Yeah. We all know that one's on there too.
So I wonder if my favorite jersey is just because that was when I first started watching the team, or if there's some design element that appeals to me. I honestly don't know the answer.
I don't know. Are your fashion sensibilities set in 2006? Maybe that's it too. Maybe you're like, that's the peak of fashion.
My music taste
there.
is. My music taste definitely is. I'm just listening to the Strokes and hanging out.
There you go. I mean, it's worth noting, I think my buddy Sean pointed this out, that Eminem just dropped an album, Lil Wayne's about to drop an album. It does kind of feel like 2006 again, so there you go. Yeah. Maybe it all links up. It all makes sense.
All right, so is that we consider that answered?
I think so.
Are we missing any major kits that people will be excited about?
I don't know. There's probably some retro throwback jerseys that were pretty great. I think we wore one that was like the 1950 team. It was a replica of that. That was pretty great.
With the sash across the middle. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. It was 2010, I believe.
Okay, there we are. But yeah, I think those are my 2: the 2012 home and the 2013 Centennial.
All right, before we move on to our other US men's national team questions, today's show is sponsored by Greats, Brooklyn's first sneaker company. Based in Brooklyn, the shoes are made in Italy. They are high-quality sneakers.
They certainly are. And, if you're going to spend that money on a jersey, you want to look equally nice to match. So I think that's what we were looking at today, right? Is if you were going to maybe try to pair one of the jerseys we just talked about with a pair of greats, what would you go with?
So it's not easy, right? Because one of the reasons I don't wear jerseys a lot
maybe for
is
you it wasn't.
It's quite hard to match with regular clothes, right? It really it literally matches with soccer shorts is what you should be going for. But if I was going to try and make it fashionable, I would pair my 2006 US jersey, so white with the vertical red and blue, with the Royale knit red.
Okay.
Great Royale knit red. It's so they're all white except for a little
the red heel.
Red heel. Yeah, I think that would be nice. Or the Royale knit navy. I could switch them out for whichever one I want.
I believe that's what I've gone with. I've gone for the all-weather wool Royale high navy. There you go.
So yours are similar too.
I've gone the high top ones, but they've got the white bottom, so you could match it with the Centennial jersey because it's got that dark navy trim. So you've got the navy trim, the white bottoms of the shoes. It all syncs up.
Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy 2 pairs, and I'm going to wear a left from the blue and a right from the red.
That's a way to go.
Then I'll have red, white, and blue.
You can be that person.
Yeah, I could be that person.
But I'm just saying, also, mine are all weather. So, say you got to walk through a wading pool in Trinidad. No problem. You can just do that. You don't have to be carried across. If you're wearing suede, more of an issue.
So we genuinely do love our greats. We both have, 2 pairs each at this point, which I'm very proud of. I like to wear mine when I want to look good. And if our listeners would like to do the same and save 15%, they can go to greats.com. Greats.com. The link will be in the show notes, and use the code TSS. It's TSS for 15% off at greats.com.
Thank you to our friends over at Greats for sponsoring today's show, and I guess sponsoring our feet, because we each have 2 pairs.
Sponsoring our feet.
Yeah, all right. Next question is, I think, basically for Daryl Grove. It comes from Jesse Rodriguez, who asks, Daryl, now that we have fast enough fullbacks, got it this time, are you more open to a back 3?
I would say that it doesn't matter. That my old problem with the back 3 was that we didn't have the centre backs to play out of the back. I think the reason we could maybe play a back 3 now is because we have Miazga and Brooks who can play out of the back. I would also say, based on recent experience, if we ever play a back 3, we're really playing a back 5.
Okay.
Right? So I just think the thing of the back 3 that people get excited about is because it looks like you're getting all these attacking players on the field, but you're really actually playing 5 defenders, right? Okay. So I guess the answer is no, because I'm not more excited about it than I was. It's still just a defensive formation for the United States.
So it's like mostly no, then.
Mostly no, yeah. And I guess it does work a little more. So we've got Yedlin and Anthony Robinson. I guess I could see that working, but I'm not all in on it just because we have a couple of fast fullbacks. I'd also even say, to me, DeAndre Yedlin is still something of a problem because it means that the guy that you're going to play out to on that right side is not so great at, maintaining possession of the ball.
I'm so happy right now.
Why is that?
So listeners, before we started recording, since this question was aimed at Daryl, I wrote down what Daryl's answer would be. Daryl, would you like to open the piece of paper to read what I thought your answer would be? He's opened it. Here we are.
Not really. It's not about speed, / it's about more than speed. Something about DeAndre Yedlin's lack of technical ability. Maybe possibly mentions the Brooks-Miazga partnership.
There we go. That's how you predict an answer right there, folks. That's how you predict an answer. I was ready to bait you if I had to, but I feel like you did it mostly on your own.
So what's your take on this?
I go back to basically that. That's why I was able to answer
what
I thought you would be. Yeah. I wouldn't have gone the Brooks-Miazga partnership. That was a thing that I was like, he'll definitely mention that. I think it's not about speed. I think the idea is that maybe if you are in that back 5, if you have pacey enough wingbacks, then they can get forward because they're that much faster. But I think it's not really that. It's about the ability to execute the overall game plan. And I'm with you that I think I still have some question marks about putting people in spots that they're not necessarily familiar with, how well they do that. And then it also obviously requires a coach who wants to play a back 3 and who's capable of explaining how to do so succinctly, say, more than 30 minutes before a game.
That's the other thing. I'd be into this. I'd be open to this if it was the stated plan and we spent forever practicing it and strategizing for it and everybody knew what was going on, right?
Yeah.
I think I always feel like instinctively reacting against this because I've got this feeling, just because I've seen it so many times, that people think a back 3 with wing backs is the way to get sort of the most attacking players on the field. And everybody forgets that what it means is that you end up only having one wide player and you're putting all the responsibility on this one wide player, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't work the way people think it works.
Yeah, and then they've got to have the awareness to know exactly when to get forward, but exactly when not to get forward. That's just as important. And that comes
you're making Anthony Robinson's job harder if you ask him to be a winger.
Exactly. It comes down to experience and preparation and familiarity. And I think until you have that, I'm not quite so comfortable with it. But we shall see.
Next question. All right, next question comes from John Youngblood. John wants to know, who is the best option to play the 6 for the US going forward? This is funny to me because yesterday I talked about one of the tactical things I wanted to see was no more lone number 6s. All right, but we're going to go with John Youngblood's question. Who's the best option to play the 6 for the US going forward? That's the defensive midfielder. John says, it seems as if Will Trapp, Weston McKennie and Tyler Adams don't quite gel in there.
Okay. First off, I would say it depends on what type of number 6 we're talking about, because I think, and your frustration that you talked about yesterday, is that we've kind of used the same number 6 for a while. It's been Michael Bradley doing a lot, don't get me wrong, but we're looking at him to sort of be this type of number 6, and I think Will Trapp does that same sort of stuff. It's those kind of diagonal long balls, but it's holding possession. It's dropping in between the center backs if need be. It's not necessarily going all in on tackles and being that frenetic energy in the middle that breaks up plays. So if we're going that route, it might be Will Trapp. It might be who's the next person to sit deep and spray passes.
Yeah.
I would hope that that's not necessarily the direction we go, and I have some other answers.
But yes, who would you like it to be?
Sure. I mean, I think it will probably be, in the short term, it will be Michael Bradley again. But I think, if I'm being honest, I would like to see somebody else maybe grab the reins. And I think the two possible candidates, one we talked about yesterday, was Russell Knaus, if he continues to have a very good season.
All right.
If he does really well this season, if maybe DC make the playoffs, he looks okay there. He gets that January camp call up and performs well. Maybe he's in there with consideration.
I've never seen him do it solo, so I don't know.
But that would be a different type of number 6 as well, because from what I understand, he is not necessarily a destroyer, but more of putting out fires, covering ground, putting in tackles, more so than like, okay, now we're going to slow it down and find spots. And then the other one, I would say, is Keaton Parks. I think there's a decent chance that unless they continue to develop him as a number 10 at Benfica, he's a big physical presence who can play technical soccer in the middle, and I think started out as a number 6, so I wouldn't mind seeing what he can do at number 6.
Is he a physical presence or is he just tall?
Oh, I mean literally.
He's tall and skinny right
I don't
now.
mean physical in terms of he is physical on the ball, will knock people off. I mean literally he's physically tall. He is a presence in midfield that he maybe distracts a little bit more than other options might.
There was that story last year where Benfica were talking about they essentially want him to be a number 6, right? They were grooming him as a Nemanja Matic type figure. We haven't seen much of him. We haven't seen any of him with the Benfica first team this season, so it's not clear how that project is going.
Yeah.
Like they may have thought, no, this isn't working. Let's give up on it.
And that's why Russell Knaus and Keaton Parks they're more so maybe a year down the road or 2 years down the road.
You're in the future, right?
I am, and that's because I think right now, unless we change the system dramatically under Dave Sarachan and then whoever comes in after him, I think it will probably be Michael Bradley will get some looks, and I think Will Trapp will continue to get looks, especially if it's Greg Berhalter as national team coach.
I think if we were going to play a game tomorrow and we had to have a lone number 6, you're going to make me do it. My choice every time is Tyler Adams.
I knew it was going to be that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I really 100% confidently believe that Tyler Adams would be the right choice.
Why?
The reason being he covers a lot of ground very quickly, right? In a way that Will Trapp can't, Michael Bradley can't, Kyle Beckerman couldn't. It would give us a number 6 who really is able to cover a lot of ground, which gives you a lot more scope in terms of how much space he can defend, right? He's also very alert and alive and will cut things out early. And then the thing I like the most about him is, unlike, say, Will Trapp and Michael Bradley, his instinct isn't to sort of put his foot on it, look around and try and play a diagonal. His instinct is to maybe take a risk and go past someone, maybe to play a quick 1-2, maybe to carry it forward and just play out of pressure and then move again. I think he would do a great job of kick-starting quick ball movement, building momentum quickly when the US regains possession from the number 6 spot. Okay. So I basically think we've got a better chance of the US playing a style of soccer that I would enjoy if Tyler Adams is the number 6.
Yeah. I mean, and that's...
But my actual preference, though, is to have 2 defensive midfielders, like Adams and McKennie next to each other so they can share the responsibility.
Yeah. But to your point about Tyler Adams, I mean, that is one of the prevailing... I guess beliefs of a lot of people we respect and follow and read is this idea that he could be a number 6. He could also be a right back if you're Matt Doyle. And I think I agree with you to some extent. Again, it comes down to what the U.S. is trying to do. If they need a bunch of ground covered and they need somebody making sure that everything is locked up tight, that is Tyler Adams. But I think there are other deficiencies, not even deficiencies, but maybe I just think like there's also a chance that if you want it to be a slow and steady number 6 and you want 2 number 8s doing a lot of running.
Hasn't the US been slow and steady for too long though?
I mean, yes, I would agree with that. I don't want to, having just said like, I don't.
Slow and unsteady.
Yes. But having just said like, I don't want 2 wingbacks because that's not a thing we've done before, like to then be like, but I don't want to change. I don't know, but then saying like, oh yeah, but we're definitely just going to do something different. It's more so like I'm trying to see what I think the U.S. will continue to do in the short term, and I think it is use that same style of number 6.
So the U.S. did use Tyler Adams for, I want to say, 10 minutes as the sole number 6 in the last couple. I can't remember if it was against Brazil or against Mexico.
I believe it was against Brazil, but I might be wrong.
That feels right, yeah, because there was a good 10-minute spell against Brazil where, there's a lot of midfielders moved around, so it's towards the end of the game. It's not Brazil's full-strength team, but you really did see Adams as the 6, and you saw what he was capable of, and he really did kickstart a lot of stuff. So if I was picking a team tomorrow, had to pick a number 6, I'd pick Tyler Adams.
I actually can't remember now. It might have been the Mexico game because I think that was Weston McKennie did it very briefly as well, but then he subbed out I think with injury. So it feels like maybe it was the Mexico game where they had a little bit more discipline. Maybe because Tyler Adams was the number 6.
Ready for the next question?
Yes, do it.
Doug Bradley asks, could the US hire one coach, just one coach, to cover both the senior men's national team and the U23 men's national team? With the core of the senior team so young, the Olympics team could basically be the same group heading into World Cup qualifiers.
I mean, the answer is they could, and maybe they would want to because then it's, one salary for one person instead of 2 salaries for 2 people.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they should. I certainly don't think that because for a couple of reasons. The first one being that you're preparing for 2 different competitions. That to prepare for a World Cup and World Cup qualification is a very different animal than Olympic qualification and playing in the Olympics.
Yep.
So then it matters in terms of the players you're calling in and who you're calling in when and where you want them to play. That's one of the things. But the other one would be that I think if you have the same coach coaching both teams, I think it's far more likely, and to Doug's point, that you're going to call in a lot of the same names both times, and then suddenly you're really limiting opportunities both for veterans and for young players. Because if you're reliant on 15 of the same players for both teams, then that's 15 players basically who aren't getting minutes with other national teams.
So I agree with everything you've just said, but there's an even bigger reason why we can't do this, and it's that the games happen at the same time.
You can just fly back and forth. What's the problem?
There are U23 games, Olympic qualifying games, at the same time as senior men's national team games.
Yep.
I'll take you back to October 2015.
I'm very happy that you were willing to do that research because that thought occurred to me and then it felt like way too much effort to look up when those games were.
I went back and looked at the schedule. So in October 2015, which was when we failed in Olympic qualifying.
It's a hard fail.
Andy Herzog was the coach, right? It was Klinsmann's assistant, took over the U23 team. The men's qualification tournament was October 1st to October 15th, 2015. At the same time, the US men's national team had games on October 10th and October 15th.
Yeah.
Can you remember those games?
I choose not to remember those games. I've had them professionally removed.
It was the CONCACAF Cup, USA versus Mexico, and then a follow-up friendly a few days later, I think against Costa Rica.
I know Fabian Johnson wasn't there. I know that.
Yes, it was the one where Fabian Johnson was sent home after the CONCACAF Cup. So that's the main reason you can't have one coach do both jobs, is that the teams will be playing in different places at the same time.
Yeah.
So unless we have some sort of like weird Prestige twins situation, then it's not something that we can pull off.
Spoiler alert for the Prestige.
Yeah, you should have seen it by now.
All right.
I apologise to no one for spoiling the Prestige.
All right.
You spoiled it by not seeing it.
If that's how you want to be. Is that a what's his name?
It is.
Is that a Christopher Nolan movie?
It is a Christopher Nolan.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I get that confused with the other...
The Illusionist came out at
the
the same time?
Thank you. That's the one. There we go. You knew well in advance. Mr. Film Study over here. One more question for you, Daryl Grove. Actually, several more questions.
Am I getting kicked out?
This is the next one.
Okay.
Liza Benovelli says, UEFA has 54 teams, CONCACAF has 41, CONMEBOL has 10. If the Americas had been one federation for the past 50 years, do you think it would have had any effect on where the U.S. men's program is at this moment in time? Would the USA, Mexico, and Costa Rica be better off for it?
Ooh, this is an interesting question,
it is.
Right? It's hard to say definitively because who knows what would have happened in that 50 years.
Doctor Strange.
So yeah, he's seen all the millions of different ways this
and we won the World Cup in one of the 14 million.
So I would say that even though it would be great for the US to have been constantly playing against, theoretically playing against better opposition like Brazil and Argentina and all that, I think we would have struggled to qualify for any World Cup ever, and therefore the US program would be behind the curve on where it is now.
I agree.
Yeah? It would have just been too hard for us to get a foothold like we essentially did in 1989 when we qualified. It's just we just managed to be better than some of those other CONCACAF nations, right? I think that hill is a lot steeper if you're in a united CONMEBOL, CONCACAF, Americas type situation.
And so I think my answer is that maybe our core team might be slightly better than it is right now because you have to be, but I think that means you're playing the same players all the time because you really can't experiment if you're playing qualifiers against South America as opposed to, say, St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
But maybe we wouldn't even be better now because we would have had those World Cups and where that ignites soccer and everybody gets behind it and it fuels the growth of soccer. The failure to make a World Cup may mean that we were still stuck. And don't just assume that because we're a big wealthy nation that means that we would eventually get good at soccer, right? I mean, it was never guaranteed.
We already, first of all, it's not like South America hates U.S. foreign policy any less than Central America. So it's going to be plenty hostile when we go to qualify there. And on top of that, we're already talking about how hard it is to qualify in Panama and Costa Rica. Go qualify in Ecuador and Bolivia and win games there when you, I think you have to have oxygen before, during, after, and even then maybe during the game too.
The Azteca would feel like a vacation.
Yeah, exactly. It would not be easy. And I think with that in mind, your point is absolutely correct, that Americans, in terms of growing the game, they like winning. They like competing. They like challenging for silverware. They like making it to the World Cup. Those are all the big ones, right? Yeah. And I think if you're playing against South American opposition, it maybe makes you a better team, but it also means you probably qualify far less regularly. And I think interest doesn't explode the way it has in the last 20 years or so.
That said, I think having got to the stage we're at now, some sort of merger now would be fantastic because I think we're ready to at least compete on some level, right, in CONMEBOL, and I think it would be worth the step up. But historically, I think it would have made it too hard for us to get to where we're at. All right, so we've only answered the USA part of this. Liza also asked about Mexico and Costa Rica. I would argue that maybe Mexico is the national team that could have benefited the most from this.
I would agree with that.
Because they would have had the chops to compete earlier on.
Yeah. I would say that's definitely the case because I think they were also more ready to compete than either the United States or Costa Rica, or at least for the United States. I would say for Costa Rica and a lot of other CONCACAF nations as well, a big part of their talent development has been the existence of Major League Soccer. That it's another league where players can go play and make some money, but also play at a decently high level. And a big part of Major League Soccer's success has been the widespread interest in soccer. If we're not qualifying for World Cups, if we don't have as many well-known players, does the league grow as much? Do we have, teams like Atlanta United nowadays, or teams like Houston who had 4 Honduran players on their team? I don't know if we have that. And so then I don't know if there are as many opportunities for talent to develop in those countries.
Yeah. Oh, but maybe Costa Ricans could have been playing in Argentina or Brazil.
That could be. Yeah. That could be. You never know.
All right. So the answer is we don't really know. But if I was offered the gamble of going back to 50 years, 1958, 1968,
50 years ago? 1968.
1968, I'm not sure I would take it. Yeah. Also, there are probably more important things to change in 1968.
I would say so. I would say so.
All right. Today's show is sponsored by Roughneck Scarves, official scarf providers of US Soccer, Major League Soccer, all of the USL leagues and the NCAA.
All of the USL leagues and the NCAA.
So you have to say it now.
Yes. So we've been talking about the U.S. national team.
We have.
Daryl, do there happen to be any scarves available for fans of the U.S. national team?
There are more than I can count. And that's not just because I can't count very high. There are lots of US Soccer, US national team, men's and women's scarves
US
available.
national and national.
National and national teams at roughneckscarves.com. The first one you see is United States, with obviously the official US Soccer logo, established 1776.
All right.
If that had been true, we'd be a lot better than we are now.
Yes.
We'd have been first.
If the U.S. Soccer Federation were rolling around in what would become Chicago, perfect. Yeah. I don't think the Huron tribe would be so thrilled about that one, but sure. Yeah.
So yes, and there's a lot of different scarves, different US. No, the word is US phrases.
Yeah.
Like home of the brave, land of the free, with the US soccer.
Oh my God, you are so not from this country.
I am not.
You are not going to pass your citizenship test if ever you take one. It's land of the free, home of the brave.
Oh, okay. I was just reading it the way that I saw it on the page.
That sounded so foreign to me when you said that.
There are also US women's national team specific scarves, which I think are definitely worth getting to show your support ahead of the 2019 World Cup.
I 100% agree, and I 100% would say that if you wanted to get not 100% off of a scarf, but a discount on the scarf, Daryl Grove, what could you do?
Did you do the USL rebrand?
I did.
If you want to get 20% off any scarf you see at roughneckscarves.com.
The blue represents old.
Use the discount code.
Was that me or USL? The answer's USL.
Total Soccer Show. Use the discount code Total Soccer Show, all one word, for 20% off at roughneckscarves.com. And when you go to roughneckscarves.com, click on the Shop for Scarves button and you will see US Soccer. You click down to that and you can see all the American soccer scarves you can handle.
There we are. So thank you to Roughneck Scarves for sponsoring today's episode. We're about 45 minutes in, so it's worth noting at this point that Daryl and I are running on like 3 to 4 hours of sleep each. So maybe that's indicative of how I'm approaching some of these questions. But it seems like we've reached a good question for us both to be sort of rambling about and try to figure out on the fly. It's Jason Onprasuth. I apologize if I butchered that one. If there was a breed of dog to represent the U.S. men's national team,
for example, captain would walk the dog out of the tunnel and it would sit near the coach on the sideline.
What breed would best represent the U.S. men's national team best?
I'm going to say a Labrador puppy.
Okay.
Because that represents the US team right now. We are a puppy of a team, right? We're sort of a lot of young players, a lot of inexperienced players. But everybody wants the best for us. Everyone seems quite charmed by the current team. Very eager, very enthusiastic to run around. Think of like Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie. Yeah. They are not afraid of charging around the field. But the team doesn't seem to quite have a coordinated plan and can sometimes look a little bit clumsy.
The big pause. It's learning how to walk and then learning how to run.
But you get my analogy. Like it's like all the enthusiasm's there. There's a lot of there's a cute factor of like, oh, look at these kids. But also, it's a little bit clumsy, a little bit uncoordinated.
What type of dog do you and your wife own?
A Labrador, not puppy.
Self-interest there. All right, I'm going to say this. I'm going to go American Pit Bull. Okay. And I'm going to say because... First of all, unfair reputation for both. Pit bulls have that reputation of being like violent and dangerous to own, like the sweetest dogs in the world.
They are.
And I'm going to say Americans don't have a great reputation when it comes to soccer. We have this whole idea of like, oh, you guys just work hard, and that's like at best. It's usually more so, let me explain to you the history of why you're calling it the wrong thing, and here's how you should be doing it.
Okay.
So I'm going to say...
Misunderstood,
but... we can be physical. We put in that hard work. You see a pit bull, it's got all the muscles showing. It is indicative of the hard work and the energy you want from your mascot. And smart, but not necessarily bred for service in Europe. And I think that's important. Like, you've got like the German Shepherds and the Belgian Malinois. They're trying to compete in Europe. That's not what it's about. It's about competing in the United States.
All right.
There we go.
So it's American Pit Bull.
There we go.
All right. Thank you, Jason, for that question.
Yeah.
Next question comes from Ryan Connor. Ryan wants to know, why does Darlington Nagbe routinely get omitted from US men's national team discussions this cycle? He seems like a great option to help transition from defence to attack in a three-man midfield, especially since McKennie and Adams can help cover some of his defensive deficiencies. So why does Nagbe routinely get omitted from US national team discussions?
I think injuries have played a part. That's been a big part of it.
He's only just come back, right? Yeah. So actually, I watched him when I was watching the George Bello first start game. Nagbe looked good.
Yeah. No, he's definitely doing well, but I think it's just been the injuries have unfortunately coincided with some of the national team breaks. I do think, though, or international breaks, rather, I do think there is unfairly an argument to be made that he is one of those, I forget what you called them yesterday, but it was like veterans who like you can still connect to the failures of qualifying.
Yeah.
And it really is a shame for him because...
Intergenerational.
Yeah, because he had to like work really hard to be in a position where he could represent the United States. But then I think anybody who stands out for whatever reason in that qualifying campaign it sort of like taints their eligibility or the readiness to call them up. And I would say that extends to Bradley Altidore, Jeff Cameron to some extent, Omar Gonzalez, I would say as well, and unfairly Darlington Nagbe, because there was the whole, like, not drama, but issue of who starts out wide and where, because Fabian Johnson can't play well here, but then that's where Darlington Nagbe needs to play. And so I feel like unfairly he's in that group of like, oh, this couldn't get sorted out and there was this problem and that's why we couldn't qualify.
Yep, I think that's true. And I also think weirdly, he was part of the problem in that Arena misused him by just partnering. Didn't we talk about the Costa Rica game? It was a central midfield of Bradley and Nagbe.
Yeah.
And Arena seemed all in on this is a central midfield that can work. And I think I was pro the idea at the time, but it really did turn out that Nagbe just didn't quite offer enough defensively when it came down to it. But I love Ryan's idea. I love Ryan's idea of Darlington Nagbe playing ahead of McKennie and Adams. Imagine that as a three-man midfield. I think it could work. It's not Nagbe's natural position, but I think he might be a really good option to do that.
Do you think he is the best option to be essentially what would be a number 10?
Weirdly, yes. It's it's slightly a not quite square peg and a not quite round hole, but the shapes don't perfectly match.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Kind of, I think.
Well, just in that, like, you look at Nagbe's skill set, right? He guides, dribbles with the ball beautifully. He's really good at a 1-2 and, like, spotting passing options and making things happen. And yet somehow he's never been the number 10 that takes over a game, right? And he almost doesn't really play that far forward, right? He's normally a little bit deeper. And so it's really hard to think of him as an actual bona fide number 10.
Yeah, I mean, that's my concern.
He's an odd player in that way.
Yeah, because I that's where I kind of disagree with you, is I don't necessarily not want to see that midfield three, but I think we run into a lot of the problems we've run into where, for what you've just said, if he's not like really like hell-bent on getting forward and facilitating attacks and linking up with the striker, you're going to end up with that like 4-2-1-0-0-3 sort of thing where there's like a huge gap and then you end up just pinging the ball along to the striker. Yeah,
Would you
exactly.
be willing to try it?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think this is the time to try lots of different stuff and see what fits and where. I hope it wouldn't be the case that he doesn't get call-ups. He gets one call-up, we play him as a number 10, we don't score 5 goals, and then it's like, oh, no, he doesn't fit.
I could also see maybe so Tyler Adams is a 6, like I was talking about earlier, and maybe then the 2 8s are Weston McKelly and Darlington Nagbe. And as Ryan says, like any defensive deficiencies that Nagbe really does definitely have, are somewhat covered by the 2 more steely partners in midfield.
I would put Nagbe, like I really do think we don't have as many as we would feel comfortable with, like automatic, guaranteed on the roster selections for the current national team pool as we would like. And so he's not like one of those automatic guaranteed, but he's also not one of those like maybe if he's lucky. He's definitely in the larger pack of, I could see them making a squad, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they don't. That's about where I am with Darlington Nagbe and a lot of players that we've talked about today, to be honest.
And I would also say that the other thing about Nagbe is his age, right? Because we waited so long for him to get his citizenship, and then honestly, Klinsmann took a while to ease him into the team, right? Like he really could have played at Copa America, a lot more. He's 28, which really is that sort of right in between. You definitely can't call him a youngster anymore, but you can't really call him like an older generation player. And I think that's the weirdness about him, right? Is he lands right in the middle, and we don't quite know how to categorize him.
Yeah. I mean, I think like Dax McCarty admitted it was a selfish thing, but the first thought he thought of when they didn't qualify in Trinidad was that was my chance to go to a World Cup, and I've missed it.
Yeah, because he's in his 30s already.
And there's a chance that that's the case for Darlington Nagbe too. I would be sad if that were the case, but as you pointed out, he's 28. 32 likely by the time the next World Cup starts. You might have younger players pushing in for that. But in the meantime, I would like to see him given opportunities to play a couple different spots and see what fits. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. He's
actually, when they do the call-ups for the October games against Peru and Colombia, he's maybe the first name to look for. Because assuming he stays healthy, keeps playing well, it would be the time to call him back in, right? And if he doesn't get called back in October, then we know that the US is deliberately not calling Darlington Nagbe back in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a chance that Darlington Nagbe becomes yours and mine, new Alejandro Bedoya, who's like a player we both like, a player we both enjoy when he plays, who we want to be included, but routinely forget? Like, I remember so many...
No, because I'm going to look for him. I think this moment will give me the mental reminder to make sure to look for him. But I understand why you would say that.
I think like 3 different times when we were talking about the U.S. national team games, we would finish recording, put the show out, and then one of us would turn to the other and say, we forgot to mention Alejandro Bedoya at all.
I think, actually, if you want to talk about this, the thing with Bedoya was always that we recognised his qualities, right? He was always like very hardworking. He was very smart about finding space and using space. But there's never really like this one main quality when you're putting a team together, you would be like, oh yeah, and you've got to get Bedoya in there for this, right?
Yeah.
Either in central midfield, they were always more like warrior type players, and out wide, they were always more like what would you think of as more flary type players. And so even though he has this smart skill set, he didn't have this like standout skill that you always think about. Whereas with Nagbe, I always think about the 1-2s, and I always think about that weird glide with the ball. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
I think because Nagbe stands out for certain attributes, I'm going to think about him more when I'm putting an 11 together.
I'm not going to lie. What you just described with Alejandro Bedoya, I was like, that sounds a lot like Darlington Nagbe in the way I would describe him. But maybe it's just that you have more specific memories, so I hope that the gliding 1-2s will be mentioned when we do US national team previews in the future.
Yeah, I hope he glides in 1-2s his way into the October squads.
There we go. But before we talk about the October squads, we're going to talk about one more question.
Yep.
Comes from Elliot Barr. Elliot asks, is Schalke becoming the new American team with all the young American players on the squad?
Schalke America. Maybe is the answer. So I'm sure Elliot, by the way, hello Elliot. We played soccer against Elliot's team last night. Elliot obviously is thinking about Weston McKennie at Schalke, but then also Schalke have Nick Tatagui, they have Haji Wright, they have Zian Jones. It's possible. It's less possible that Haji Wright breaks through, right? Because he seems to not be doing so well. But it's possible that Nick Tatagui is around that first team soon, right? What is interesting for me is when I started stacking this up, I'm not convinced that Schalke is the team that's going to be even the German American team. I think like Dortmund, there's big rumours that Dortmund are going to sign Gio Reyna when he's old enough, right? So you could see Gio Reyna and Pulisic in the Dortmund team, and you've got 2 Americans in Dortmund before you have 2 Americans starting for Schalke, right? Hanover have got Bobby Wood, Josh Sargent, Chris Gloucester coming up behind. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Hanover has got Sebastian Soto, Chris Gloucester, and Bobby Wood. They could have 3 Americans before Schalke have 2. Bremen have Sargent and Aaron Johansson. So there's almost like they're not. I don't think they're consciously aware of this, but there's a race between German teams to be the first German team that's starting more than 1 American. Yeah,
because that's the thing is like Fulham at one point had like 5 Americans that could start. Usually had like 1 or 2 in there. So you're right that it comes down to the number of Americans. But I would also say like Schalke are historically a Champions League team. Dortmund historically a Champions League team. Fulham not as much. So I do think you may get a couple of Americans coming through the ranks, maybe getting intermittent minutes here and there at Schalke. But I think a team like Hanover is more likely to be. I don't know how you become like Hanover America or Hanover of Germany, but also lots of Hanovers in the United States. I don't know. But I think they're like a smaller club who maybe will be more likely to give...
Hanover across America.
Yeah, perfect, I think. But I feel like it's that. It's a smaller team, maybe that has a little bit less money, so is more likely to look for young Americans that they can bring through and give opportunities to. I don't know if Schalke are always going to be as ready to give Haji Wright a chance and see what happens, whereas maybe another Bundesliga club might.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm with you that like it could be. If Schalke bring through another couple players, then maybe, if we've got 1 or 2 consistently in the matchday squad. But for right now, it's kind of a toss-up.
I think it is fair to say, to Elliot's question, that it's probably going to be a German team that becomes the new American team, right? The next full America will not be in England. It will be in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think,
we just don't know which one it's going to be. I wish they would all just actually get into the race and decide that they want to win it.
we want to double down on Americans?
I want every German team to be being like, we're going to be the team that has the most Americans.
You sell some jerseys.
Yeah, they would sell some jerseys.
Yeah. You get 5 Americans in there. Americans like jerseys. Maybe you get 5 different of those clubs' jerseys purchased by 1 person. There you go.
Maybe. Maybe. You can wear them all at once, like Joey.
Yep. Could I be wearing any more clothes? That's the big question.
Could I be wearing any more Bundesliga jerseys?
9.
Thank you to everybody for today's US men's national team themed questions. If you have any other questions, we're open up to obviously any other topics. TotalSoccerShow.com/questions.
All right. We also have many scouting reports to get to, starting with Ian Shank. But before we get to Ian Shank, Daryl, actually, should we explain what the Scouting Network is, just in case we've got a few new listeners?
Yeah, let's do that. So the Scouting Network it's one of the ways that we fund the Total Soccer Show. People sign up to support us at $5 a month or more. If you go to $10 a month, we guarantee to answer a question a month from you. At $5 a month, we assign you a talented young player to keep an eye on, send us reports when they do something important. And we have quite a few reports.
We sure do.
To read today. I see a lot of Americans up top, though.
It's a couple Americans. We've got Ian Shank up first, scouting Fernando Arce Jr., the 21-year-old American midfielder on loan at Dorados de Sinaloa from Club Tijuana. Fernando Arce Jr. has gone the full 90 at center midfield in both games since Diego Maradona took over as Dorados manager. We haven't really talked about that one.
No, we better delete that, right? Diego Maradona is the Dorados manager.
There you go. What more could you ask for? Apparently, Maradona's arrival has ended the Arce as a defender experiment.
So, Dorados are second tier in Mexico,
Correct.
right? They're in the Ascension. It's just wild to me that Maradona this summer was definitely taking way too many drugs and basically passing out on worldwide television. And now he's coaching in the second tier of Mexico.
Yes. All of that is accurate.
Yeah.
I'm equally confused. But at least he's given Americans a chance.
I'm not sure I want to put the future of Fernando Arce Jr. in Diego Maradona's hands.
I'm not sure I want to put the future of anything in Diego Maradona's hands.
Whew, okay, Brian Hoyser is scouting Sergino...
Unless I own stock in cocaine.
Brian Hoyser is scouting Sergino Dest, the 17-year-old American winger for Ajax. Brian says, Sergino Dest played the entire match on the left wing against PSV on Tuesday. I'm assuming this is for the U19s. And scored the third goal in a 4-2 win. He was active in the attack, and on his goal, he towed the defensive line, received a through ball, and smoothly beat the keeper with his second touch for the goal.
Not bad.
It seems like Dest, former fullback, is now full-time a winger for Ajax U19s.
There we go. Put him as a wingback, Daryl. Problem solved. America, 352. Ben Langevin scouting Curtis Jones, 17-year-old English midfielder for Liverpool.
New Gerrard.
Curtis scored in
That's
Liverpool's. Curtis scored in Liverpool's 5-2 win over PSG in the UEFA Youth League. The combo of Jones and fellow TSS scoutee Rafa Camacho, who had 2 goals in that same game, gives Liverpool fans a lot to look forward to when it comes to youth on the horizon.
All right. Rand Konga is scouting Rafik Zekini, the 20-year-old left winger on loan at FC Twente from Fiorentina. Rand says Norwegian Pulisic, as he calls him, has reappeared on loan at FC Twente, and after spending the last year languishing down the depth chart at Fiorentina. At Twente, he has been a regular late sub and was able to score his first goal for the club this past weekend when he came on as a late sub and scored in the 91st minute of a 3-1 win over Telstar.
Go on, youngsters. Logan Jurgens scouting Ismaila Sarr, 20-year-old Senegalese winger at Rennes. Ismaila Sarr. Sarr played 75 minutes in Rennes' Europa League win against Jablanak. Sure. In the 31st minute, Sarr cut in from the left and passed it to a teammate, who then lifted the ball into the air for Sarr to smash into the top right corner for a lovely volley from outside the box. So, Sarr ended up with a goal and the MLS assist.
That's impressive to get an assist in MLS when you're playing in France.
Hey.
Robert Newman.
Ismaila Sarr could do it.
Robert Newman is scouting Mason Mount, the 19-year-old English midfielder on loan at Derby County from Chelsea.
This is 2 reports combined into one.
Okay, well, Mount had another eventful week. He made headlines midweek as England manager Gareth Southgate watched him in person instead of watching the Champions League matches. He might have DVR'd them. He Sky Plus them. That's what you do in England. Mount was lively in Derby's 0-0 draw with Blackburn and then scored his 5th of the season on a free kick in the 3-1 win over Brentford. Mount then put in an excellent shift in Derby's shock elimination of Manchester United in the Carabao Cup. They won 8-7 on penalties. Mount was involved in Derby's second goal, converted the first penalty in the shootout, and was a creative force throughout, which is good because Southgate was once again in the stands. He's stalking him.
Yeah. I mean, it could be that he was watching Man United, but I like to think that it means that we're going to see a Mason Mount call up at the next England camp. And I think it wouldn't be that far-fetched.
All right.
Dylan Veach scouting...
It actually would, to see a championship player in the England team.
Hey, who's England's number 2 goalkeeper right now?
Definitely not Jack Butland.
There we go. All right, then. Dylan Veach scouting Kai Havertz, 19-year-old German attacking midfielder for Bayer Leverkusen. Playing in the number 10 role, Kai scored 3 goals in 2 games to help Leverkusen earn their first 2 wins of the season, a come-from-behind victory in the Europa League, and then a 1-0 win over Mainz for Bayer's first win of the Bundesliga campaign. Both the goals in the Europa League were well taken from outside the box, and Kai was awarded Man of the Match honors for those and other efforts.
Ooh, we got some debuts here from Keith Sparks, who is scouting João Felix. He's the debutant, not Keith.
That's a solid name.
João Felix, the 18-year-old forward for Benfica, started his first match in the Premier League this past weekend and scored his second goal of the campaign, timing his run perfectly, lifting the ball over the keeper. He also had a double nutmeg during the match, which showed off his insane dribbling ability.
That'll work. I like a double nutmeg. I also like Sergei Milinkovic-Savic, scouted by Nick Becker. Not Nick Becker, but Sergei is the 23-year-old Serbian midfielder for Lazio. SMS displayed his aerial ability on Sunday. He headed a ball back across the box to assist for the first goal, and then scored the third with his head in Lazio's 4-1 win over Genoa.
Philip Andriani is scouting Andre Green, the 20-year-old oft-injured English winger on loan at Portsmouth from Aston Villa. Philip says Andre Green is injured again. He posted
I thought you read ahead to know that.
He posted on social media that he had undergone a successful surgery to remove a cyst on the knee, which he said, quote, caused him pain for the last year, unquote. That statement was later confirmed by the club. This has raised questions as to why this procedure wasn't handled in the off-season and how it was missed during his medical before his move to Portsmouth.
Yeah, and it sounds like the post was deleted and then the club later confirmed it. So there's some speculation that maybe they really didn't want people to know that they had missed it in the medical screening.
Always try and cover up your mistakes.
Yes.
You definitely won't get caught.
Taylor Mukaria is scouting Ademola Lookman, the 20-year-old English winger at Everton. Lookman played 13 minutes in Everton's loss to West Ham. That brings his total for the season to 2 appearances and a grand total of 44 minutes played. We appear to be at a standstill with Lookman, says Taylor, being on the bench for Everton, but only coming on for short cameo appearances, if at all.
Run to Germany this January. Run, Ademola.
I think he tried. I think Everton said no.
Chase Paul is scouting Gedson Fernandes, the 19-year-old Portuguese midfielder for Benfica. Gedson was called up to the Portuguese national team for the most recent international break and got his first cap coming on in the 89th minute of their 1-1 friendly draw with Croatia. Fernandes started in Benfica's 2-0 loss to Bayern in the Champions League and was maybe partially at fault for the second goal as he was casually jogging at the top of the box rather than covering a wide-open Renato Sanchez.
Chase did a good job of explaining everything else, but it's also the case that 3 of Benfica's defenders all went out to mark James Rodriguez, and there was another defensive midfielder who also didn't mark Renato Sanchez. Ooh. So not great on the whole for Benfica.
We saw this goal, right? This is the goal where he dribbles like the length of the field, basically.
Yes, Renato Sanchez. Yes.
Yeah. I've just realised maybe one of the reasons Keaton Parks is finding it so hard to get in the Benfica team is that they're busy getting other youngsters in there, right?
Selfish.
They got João Felix and Gedson Fernandes in today's reports that there must be it's like a line of youngsters waiting to start for the Benfica first team.
Do they know how important Keaton Parks is?
I
for
guess
me
not.
Getting my number 6 prediction right?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully someone at Benfica listens to the show.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do.
All right. Thank you to all the scouts for sending in reports today, keeping us updated on the wide world of soccer. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
I feel like you got the the American saying wrong, the land of the free thing, and so you've gone really double down American with the wide world of soccer.
Always double down.
And I like it.
Always
and right back at you, buddy.
And the flag was still there. Taylor, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. Listeners, thank you for listening. We will be back again tomorrow with yet another Total Soccer show.